Hello.
Today we're in the kitchen and we're figuring out all the old wiring, what we're ripping out and what we're keeping. Yesterday we ripped out a bunch of areas on the walls, areas that had old dry adhesive, and areas that would make it a lot easier to wire stuff. I already disconnected all the old outlets, took off the electrical boxes, and separated all the wiring in here. We gotta figure out what fuses are connected to the kitchen and what wires get power from the fuse box. So cheers to 100 trips back and forth to the fuse box. This has power, this doesn't, this don't know. The living room doesn't. It turns on this. Kitchen light, so the light comes from there. So that has power. We found our first wiring junction. This wire is tied in powering our front dining room, and this wire is powering the light above the sink. So let's label them. Now we just gotta figure out how this wire is getting power. My first guess is this switch, because the hot terminal or the common terminal has two wires going into it, and this is the only other area that has power when the breaker is turned on. Now with the wires disconnected and the power turned back on, we can see that this wire is feeding power to the box, and this wire is tied in, taking power somewhere else. We can label the power that's hot with some blue painter's tape, and then find out where this wire is leading to. With those two wires disconnected now, this wire isn't getting power anymore, so we can tell that this wire was getting power from that switch box, so let's label it. With the fuse turned on for all the outlets in here, none of these wires have power. This is the only wire that has power with the fuse turned on, so we're gonna tie these two together and see where this one brings power to. Now that those two wires are tied together and the breaker's turned back on, we can see that this wire has power now. These two wires used to be tied together, so we're gonna tie them together again and see where this wire brings power to. This wire was tied in, giving power to the stove fan, and this wire was tied in, giving power to another outlet. We're gonna replace them both, so we're just gonna rip them out. With those two wires now tied together again, it gives power to this wire, which used to be tied in with this one on an outlet. So let's tie these together and see what it powers. Pretty positive they give power to this outlet for the fridge though, saying that this is the only outlet left on the circuit. You always gotta double check though. Now with those two wires tied together, we can see that they do give power to the fridge outlet. We're just gonna take this apart real quick to make sure that this is the last outlet in the circuit. Now let's label all these wires so we don't forget them and get them mixed up. That's about it for today. We got all the wiring figured out in here, where power is coming in from, where it's tied in at, and where it's going. That puts us in a perfect position to start wiring up new outlets, under cabinet lights, and lighting on the ceiling. We're gonna start that tomorrow, so I'll see you guys then.